Hello everyone, in this video we are going to go over SQLObject. So to get started, we need to first install SQLObject, and to install SQLObject you can install it with the pimp install SQLObject, and it will install all the requirements and dependency of SQLObject. So I've already installed, so I'm not going to reinstall it again. So let's go over to the basic operation that we can do with the SQLObject. So to do basic operation, first of all we need to import everything from the SQLObject. If you want, you can just use one by one. I've just imported all of the dependency that is required. So for the use case, I'm using SQLite database with in memory. So you can use connect to various databases if you want. Uh, you can connect to MySQL, Postgres, SQLite. There is various type of database that we can connect, and with SQLObject, it is another ORM library same as SQL Alchemy. So here in example, if you want to enable debugging or debug output, which will provide us the the generated SQL output, you can provide the debug and debug output parameter. But since I don't require, right as of now, I've disabled it. If you want, we will go ahead and show the output with the debug. For for starters, I'm not going to enable it. So I have created a basic function to just print out what are the other operation and differentiate the different operations. So to work, all of the ORM model requires a model that will be reference or that will be used to reference the table inside the database. So for example, here we have created a user model that will reference the user tables inside the database. So it is a basic model which just have three columns: name, created at, and updated at. The one is string column that that is being imported from the SQLObject. These all are imported from the SQLObject. The string column is same as varchar. The second one is uh, since we are not providing uh, since we are not providing the length, it defaults to text column, so it will be text column. Then we have timestamp column, which will be datetime column. The created at and updated will be datetime column. So this is the basic model which we are using for this example. So let's go over to retrieving, updating, and deleting records with SQLObject in our databases. So to retrieve models from the database, I have created a simple function here. You can just remove the condition part. So for example, you can see here to retrieve a specific user, to retrieve a specific user. If we want to retrieve all the user, we can use user.select, and just we don't have to pass any parameter if we are selecting all of the user records, and then we can just pass it to the list function that will just internally call the method and create the SQL, and then run it over the database and retrieve the records. So it will be done, all of the work will be done internally by the SQLObject. So here, for example, if you want to retrieve a specific record, we can pass a condition, and we have with the model that is being created with also SQLObject, we have some objects or internal functions that are available to us. We can use to create conditions. So for to reference the name or ID or created at, by default, all of the model that is generated by SQLObject has a ID column. So for example, if we want to create condition, we have to use the key object that is being provided by internally when we inherit from SQLObject, and that is mapped to the column that has a it has a schema table uh, which reference to all the column that inside the table. So here we are creating a condition to retrieve a specific user by the ID that is being passed. So whenever the condition is being passed, we are just getting it and just assigning it to the condition, and based on the condition we are retrieving all the records. So this is the operation of this is the way we can retrieve records from database. We can there are other format also, but this is the basic one. It If we use this format, it will return us SQL, the object of user, that we can use to see all the user. If we are using a different format or SQL, we also have SQL builder that we can use to retrieve the record. But when we use SQL builder, it will not return us object. We have to create, if we want to do operation on object, we have to create ourselves. SQL object was just retrieve the data and will just return it in the format that we have just defined. So let's go over updating the records. So to update records, we don't have any methods available over the model. So we have to use SQL builder to update the records inside the database. So for example, here I am updating a specific user by providing the user ID and the values or columns that I want to update. So inside the update function, we can pass various operations. First of them is the table name that we want to update. So for example, here I want to update the user table. Then we have to provide the values, or it will be a dictionary with the column name and the value that we want to update. And then we can provide the condition by which based on which we update the user. So here we are passing the user ID and comparing with the user model to retrieve the user and to update the user, that specific user. So it will create a query, but it will not run. Uh, it will be same as SQL Alchemy. You have gone through the SQL Alchemy video. So to run the query, we have to retrieve the connection and then convert the query to the SQL representation that can be run. So here we are getting the connection from the user model. Then we are converting the query to SQL representation, and then we are running the query with the connection with the query one method that we have available. We have different methods available to us to look over all the method. You can look over the documentation. One of the method is query all query one. So since we want to just retrieve one record or one user, we are using query one. Since we want to just update one record, that's why we are using query one. If we have to update many records, then we will use query all. So after updating the record, I'm just returning the specific record and seeing what all sorts of that the changes has been done to the database. Now let's go over to the delete record. Delete record is same as update. We have to use SQL builder to delete the record. It The format is almost same. With the delete method, first we have to provide the table name, then the condition based on which the user will be deleted. So you can see the pattern that it is almost same. We have to retrieve the connection, then convert it to SQL representation, and then we can run the query. Since it is a delete, it may be possibility that we want to delete many S records. So that's why I have used query on to delete as many S records based on the condition. And to check if the record is deleted or not, we are using the get user method to make sure that and check that all the records have been deleted. And here here is the script's basic structure. So I'm just creating the table. We have create table method with the user model. By default, we have to call methods to create the table, since it will be not exist on the start. So we with the create table method, we create the user model inside the database. So here I am adding some records to the database with the names, time, and date time with the date time library, and then I am just retrieving all the records and printing it out the information to the console. So here we can see we are accessing the different methods that we just defined, and we are updating the information and then we are passing the information according to the function defined. So get user with the get user we can retrieve a single user or we can get all the users. So here I am printing, just getting all the user and printing out them. Then with the updating, we can just update one record at a time. You can update the method to update various records, but as of now I'm just updating the single user and providing the ID and the values that I want to update. And with the delete user, we just have to pass the ID of the user that you want to delete. So let's go over and run the program and see what's the output is generating. So you can see with the getting user, we are getting all the users and retrieving all the users that are being saved to the database. So since we have created 3 records, we are getting 3 records from the database. And in the updates, as we have only updated a single table, or sorry, single row, single record in our table, and just want to check the update has been made, we are just retrieving the single record. So as you can see, we updated the John name from John to Jack. We can see that it is being updated. Then the last is, we are deleting the record. We are deleting the first record by providing the first ID. So we can see that there is only 2 records are retrieved and one of the record is deleted, the first record. So this is the basic of SQL object. If you want to learn more, you can go over the documentation. So let's go ahead. Since we have not seen the debug output, let's go ahead and check out the debug output, which will give us more information. If you want to debug how the query is being generated, what is the output. Yeah, in the case if we are facing some problems and we are not able to understand what is the issue. So let's go ahead and run it again. So as you can see, we are getting various queries that is being run internally. So first of all, when we call the create table, it just creates a create statement for tables, and that insert it. As I mentioned, that the string column will be text since we are not defining length. And here we are creating 2 tables. The first one is just creation of the query. They you can see here we are not running the query, it just creates the query. The second one is the query that is being run with the R. You can see that that is the query that is being run. Then we are inserting 3 records. So here we can see we have insert statement with the username, all the information that we just provided, and then we run. So internally when we call insert, there are 2 queries that being fired. First is to insert the user and then to retrieve the user ID and assign it to the model instance that we just created. So for example, here we have inserted the record and then we are retrieving the ID for that user. So here we are returning the user ID for John and then assigning it to model for further use if you want to use our instance later. The same goes for all the 3 records that we just inserted. It just insert and retrieve the ID from the database. Then here we are getting all the records from the database. So here you can see the query that is being fired. Since it is a select query, you can see it is a select query mentioned here, and here it is not running. Here we can see it is being run. So you can see all the columns are being selected and retrieved with the condition that has been passed. So for the update statement, here we are just updating the user ID with the condition. So we can see the update statement that is being generated and the output that is being or the return value that is being written. Then for delete case, we can also the same goes for delete case. Here we are seeing the select query or delete query that is being generated, and then we are returning all the records to see if the record is being deleted or not.